Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Come on!
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Stuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to book release day. Woo! We need a little soundtrack, clapping. How are you guys?
Who are we talking to?
Talking to everybody. I'm talking to everybody here. How are we?
I'm the only other one with the mic. Although Mara may have a mic. Mara, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Christine. How are you?
Did you survive? You had to survive a hardcore show.
I did. It was fun.
And an
fun.
Eclipse. Okay,
Yeah.
you had a good time.
The hardcore show was fun. I was glad to be safely situated in the balcony seat.
Do you ever have a Coca-Cola Zero where it's got like no sugar in it whatsoever? The hardcore show is sort of like there was absolutely no danger to this event compared to the events that we used to go to, where it's like, okay, we may not make this out alive. The shows have become like a family affair.
Yeah, for me, I was with a friend of mine from when I was a kid that I used to go to those shows with, Eric Casanova,
who we were all scared of.
At Kshwar.
Well,
your crew was.
I was scared. I was scared of him.
Okay. But here I was with him 40-some years later, sitting on the balcony and watching this, and it was definitely surreal. When
my daughter and Maya are and my nephew Jack are the mosh pit lords, then we know it's a new age in
that's a whole other thing.
Music.
Maya was definitely running that mosh pit there. Like she was like I was having a great time just watching. But the show is great, and every time I see you guys, I hadn't seen Shelter probably since like the mid '90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I saw you at the Today like last year.
Oh, that's right. And
I really appreciated that, and in one sense, Shelter even more because your message is so directly, bhakti,
poignant.
Yeah. So, but it was wonderful. It was how the whole band sounded great, and the whole message and the vibe that was coming through. It just I sit in a club like that and I just think like, and not to kind of put anyone down or anything like that, but it's just the majority of the messages that are usually coming in that area, are just darker or
a little
more
darker,
Tomasic or and it's just such an incredibly positive vibe coming through, and you can see the people respond to that. It's like it's refreshing,
It's refreshing. It's okay to be happy.
It's okay to be good.
Give you permission to be happy.
You don't have to hate.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
Yeah, it was really sweet, and the program. Truthfully, I was a little hesitant to do that Generation Records in store. I just was like, I didn't really know anybody. I didn't know who was coming. I didn't know if anybody would come. My mother said she wanted to come. I was like, oh man, how am I going to merge my mother in with the New York City hardcore scene?
my older sister shows up, and then my younger brother shows up. I was like, all right, this is gonna. It's like when your worlds collide. My worlds were imploding in
All
on
the
me.
worlds were colliding on you.
But it worked out great.
Okay, good.
It worked out really good.
And here we have an ex-girlfriend from when you were 17.
She shows up angry at me. I don't know what. No.
Yeah, it was nice. I saw your
yeah.
mother. That was nice.
Saw my mom. Did he take a picture? I think she felt
Someone
like
Amy Stella took a
celebrity.
picture of me and your mother together.
Yeah.
And her, all three of us.
Yeah, it was good. I felt good. And today I got boxes of books on my doorstep. Check this out. The book has
Well, that's the
arrived.
point. Today's show is like the special book release show. Today's the official day where the book is like fully available, right?
I've been getting emails from everybody that like I ordered this book 4 months ago, and I just got a message from Amazon. Your book will be delivered tomorrow.
All right.
So
this
that's
is
really
it.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's not spend too much time just gibbering here, because today we're going to read. I'm going to read to you from the book and ask you some questions. All right.
Okay, great. Any announcements, Mara, before we get out of here?
Yeah, we have back to recovery group meetings today. The men meet at noon. The women meet at 2 p.m. And then we also have in-person meetings in Nashville and Alachua.
In-person meetings.
Yeah.
All right.
And the show will be at 7 a.m. for the rest of the week.
Yeah, tomorrow we have Krishna Kshetra Swami, great scholar and Bhagavatam scholar. He's also written books on. He has a lot. A lot of his research and writing has to do with animals.
What?
How we relate to the animals, Raghunath. So I think we're going to talk to him about Bhagavatam. We're going to talk to him about animals, cows, things like that.
Mm.
And he's like a real Oxford scholar. Like he's the real deal,
Yeah,
Great
very
soul.
sweet man too.
Yeah, sannyasi.
So basically, you are interviewing people when I'm gone. I'm going to be going to the West Coast doing a little tour of shows
won't all
and
be interviewing
kirtans and book things.
It'll be he's tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday it'll be the spiritual scientist. But I won't be interviewing him. We'll just be doing the show like a normal show, reading from Bhagavatam together.
Okay, great.
And then we'll try to line up some more things in coming days until you're back. You're kind of back on the 17th or 18th?
He flies back on the 17th. He's back on the show on the 18th.
Back on the show on the 18th.
Really?
I'm trying to line up another show with Dunya and maybe some other, counselors or, of professional sorts. And because there's some really great questions came up from the sage groups that have to do with how do we apply bhakti to our mental health issues. And I'm like, I don't know. so I'm trying to pull in some people to help with that.
Do you think mental health has always been there, but we just ignored it, or have people just
You mean mental health
mentally
issues?
disturbed? Just like mental health is such a it's a hot topic right now. So the question is, has it always been prevalent in culture, but we just overlooked it? We're just more
Has
like
mental health
survival
been
mode.
prevalent or mental health problems?
Mental health problems, have they always been there, but we've just been in survival mode? Now we have.
I would imagine they've always been there, but probably they're more there now than ever, in my guess. Yeah.
Maybe we're just had more. Maybe we have more time on our hands to be like, I'm sad. Where in the old days,
I don't think we do.
when in the old days, it was sort of like, I gotta survive.
I don't know if people have a lot of time on their hands. They're working long hours and stuff.
Yeah, actually, true.
Anyway, let's not get into that. This is your book release day. We're gonna get into
Okay.
this, right? Are we gonna do an Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya? Oh, we already did. We're gonna
Om
we're gonna
Namo
do
Bhagavate
Narayana Namaskar. I don't know if we do
Vasudevaya.
Narayana
I think
Namaskar before we
just
read your
talk.
book.
I
Okay.
think we just talk. Hey,
All right,
what
let's
did you
just-
think of when Krishna Chaitanya live and the sage sang Guru Vastakam? Wasn't that pretty?
He's got a great voice. It was nice.
He's got a beautiful, I know he's not the singer, but he's got a better voice than me. That's why I'm not singing it.
No, that was nice. You got a lot of.
It changes the whole mood of the room, doesn't it?
Well, you got to explain what you're talking about now. People don't know.
There are these beautiful prayers to the Guru written by a master, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And before we end the set with the theme song Shelter, which is really sounds like an army tank driving through the forest. He starts off with this very beautiful Samsaradava Nanalila Loka. But he does it for two verses, and then we
yeah.
kick into the guitar. But it's so beautiful. It changes the energy of the entire club.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway,
there's a little chanting going on.
I got a lot of positive feedback on that.
Good, good.
All right.
All right,
What do you
let's get
got
into
for me?
your
What
book.
do you want to talk
So
about?
this is maybe Mara should tell everyone right now where it's available and all that too, just so that we get that out front.
Sure, you can buy it on Amazon, and I'm going to put the link in the show notes as well as on the Zoom chat board.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Great book to give out to friends.
Okay, so
So you got one for yourself, get one for a friend, and if you get it on Amazon, even if you didn't get it on Amazon, you can go to Amazon and say, "Hey, I got this at a show," and write a review. Give me a 5-star review. It helps all the algorithms. We're trying to spread this message of
algorithms.
It's just truthfully, the story is my story, but it's everybody's. It's really the story of coming to God from our material life. So I think in that sense, people can relate to it.
So the book is called From Punk to Monk, a memoir by Ray Raghunath Capo. That's what you went with, Ray Raghunath Capo?
You know what? I didn't know what to go with.
Okay.
Even my kids don't know me as Ray.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like a lot of people know me as Ray. So
yeah, it's true. Ray Raghunath Capo from the band's Youth of Today and Shelter. And we got Jay Shetty right here, just speaking to what you were saying. Raghunath's transformation shows how one person's choice to evolve can change the lives of so many. That was your choice. But it wasn't an easy choice. And now we're going to hear about just how difficult it was. You ready?
Sure.
I'm going to jump ahead. The book starts in an interesting place. It starts with you on a train from Delhi to Calcutta after having just left Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So I honestly haven't had a chance to read the book. I just got a copy. I just got the copy on Sunday. So yeah, but I'm jumping around and picking some things out, and I had some help from Linda to choose some sections. But I wanted to go here first. Of course, it's going to deal with your teenage life and what you're going through, and how you had some success with your band, but also you felt some disillusionment from that. And meanwhile, you're kind of searching spiritually, and these teachings from Bhagavad Gita and so on began to influence you, and you went to India. And in India, you speak about your time there in Vrindavan, that very special Krishna-centric area, holy place. And that, in the book, that place for you is both like, a place of like joy and fun and wonderment and discovery, but it's also like really challenging to live because you're living amongst monks and you're having to, I suppose it's kind of like holding a mirror up to yourself and seeing where you're at, like when you're back in New York and reading your books and, talking to people, it's like, oh, I'm really deeply spiritual. But then when you get thrown into people that are practicing it intensely, you're like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Right.
Exactly. You get to face all your demons in an intense, concentrated environment.
I'm sure. So this is what you write at the end of one chapter. I'm going to read this first, and then I'm going to jump to the beginning of the book because they're kind of connected. But you wrote, Vrindavan was a dose of medicine too big for me to swallow. As much as I had this vision of nirvana in the Holy Land, I wasn't pure enough to be there. I knew this. There was something about this place that brought me very high and very low, like a purging of lifetimes of karma in a few months. Interesting. So are you saying it was kind of like sometimes there's something that's good for you, but you can only do so much. You go in that sauna and you turn it up, and then you're like, I got to get out of here.
I got to get out of the sauna. That's a great analogy. I should have used that.
Okay. So so the holy place was like a makeup mirror. Oh, makeup mirror. That's what you call them? Those magnifying.
Yeah, those makeup mirrors that make your face look. You see every pore in your face.
Like a makeup mirror, enlarging my ego's blemishes. Instead of dealing with the blemishes, I paraded around like an arrogant prince. Yes, Vrindavan was crushing to that false ego, and on a few occasions, it had me almost jump the fence back to my old world of Maya, or world of illusion. Vrindavan shook me to the core and made me face off with some serious demons I had no idea were living inside me. I didn't end up jumping the fence, but I was moving on from that sacred vortex to stay in an ashram in, you were right, yeah, Kolkata. It was called Calcutta at the time, right?
It was called Calcutta at the time.
Yeah.
The
Still,
editor told me, editor said use call it
okay. You're like,
the
I
real
want to
name.
use
I
Calcutta.
want to use Calcutta. It's a cooler
That's how we
name.
know it. Still, the joy I experienced in Vrindavan was of the highest caliber. I relished new heights of realizations, the flowers, the beauty of seeing other soul seekers on their path, and the sweet people that loved me, took care of me, and inspired me over those 4 months. I would not soon forget the dusty town that became a magical home. Habits that I had formed there, rising early, chanting and meditating, singing and dancing, would direct the rest of my life. Freeing my mind of media, consumption, and sex was a genuine relief and no challenge whatsoever. No, I would not ever forget Vrindavan, as a flying bird never forgets the nest that provides the deepest sense of comfort and home. Kolkata would be a more palatable dose of the medicine. Okay, so that gives us a hint in what we'll read about in the chapters in Vrindavan, that there's going to be a lot of really wonderful experiences and wonderful people, and there's also going to be that inner struggle that you were going through. This is where the book begins, and you'll see how they're connected. So chapter 1, India, 1988. Where was I right then when you were on that train?
Sure, yeah.
I was probably selling books somewhere.
Some books somewhere.
Okay. So as I sat on the third-class train to Calcutta, the steady, repetitive sound of iron reels meeting the track of the Indian Railway reminded me of a train from the 1930s, right out of an episode of The Little Rascals, which I watched as a kid. You had to go there to one of those
Little
early
Rascal
television.
episodes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think people could relate to that.
The train was probably as old as those episodes. It needed a good power washing and some bleach, but it was still exponentially more intriguing than the Metro North train I used to take from Westchester to New York City. This was a punk rock train, a total mess, like India in 1988, functioning chaos. And yet at the same time, this country had seemingly millions of social, religious, and superstitious rules that I didn't understand as an outsider. From my perspective, India was a hot mess express with deep spiritual values. It was a lot like me. I got to India in September 1988 when I was 22 years old. My father had just died after being in a coma for 3 years. Since I was 14, I'd been hanging out on New York City's Lower East Side and playing gigs on weekends. And I've been touring with hardcore punk bands since I was 16. The disorder of the Lower East Side in the early 80s prepared me to feel right at home in India. I was a teenage straight edge hardcore yogic vegetarian on a quest for truth, God and otherworldly love, love with a capital L. Internal forces were pushing me to leave my world behind. I'd walked away from my family, my friends, my bandmates, my fans, and my entire music scene. I'd given my share of the record company I'd started to my high school friend and partner. I told him I had no interest in the music business. After signing 20 bands, I went from touring the United States with my hardcore band Youth of Today to being an all-in Orthodox Hindu monk. Well, almost all in. My excitement and determination vacillated daily, especially in those early days. I'd lost faith in the material world, yet there was so much to digest about how the culture of ancient India met modern-day Indian society. The philosophy and the lifestyle were so foreign to me. I didn't lament giving up my previous life as a frontman. In return, I'd receive the greatest gift I could give myself, a rebirth, a clean canvas, a chance not to reinvent myself, but to uncover what was already inside of me. I didn't go to India to put on a Hindu costume. I got into Vedic teachings to uncover all the costumes I'd been wearing and to find out what I was at my core.
Mm.
That's what drove you to go there?
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't really interested in joining a religion per se. I was really interested in I understood the demons, the kama, krodha, lobha, moha, lust, greed, anger, envy that that covered the self.
Yeah.
And I knew they were almost like we use that analogy of the horses pulling the chariot. They were sort of like wild horses, but they were pulling me, and I knew I was the me. I knew I was the me that was helpless by these forces. So I thought underneath these urges of the mind, there's got to be some peaceful being under there.
Mm.
And what is that peaceful being? Or am I just cemented to my desires and my hopes and my lamentations and my and the tugs of my senses. So yeah, I was there. I'm like for sure a spiritual, but like I was already on a spiritual quest, and I was doing it like you said, walking around New York City and reading a book and sitting in the park and then pontificating and sharing it with friends at a coffee shop and then going back into my world and then, but when you're in the container of that holy place, everything becomes magnified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And you're just dealing with other people and sometimes other egos and and sort of like you you don't have that. You're almost like it's like you're in boot camp when you're in an ashram. This is what you're
Mhm.
doing today. Okay. And the mood is just okay. And there was no material comfort.
Well,
There was nothing to lean into.
let's get to that in a minute because we're about
Okay.
to read a little bit about that. But just on this topic, in one sense, this is like a coming of age thing because, like, you're coming through your teens and into your early 20s, and you're trying to find who you are and what your place in life is, and it just occurs to me reading that when you're a teenager, you really don't know very much of anything, and you're trying to figure it all out. And you made this kind of drastic move. But that, I'd imagine, I know, like in my own life, and I'm sure in yours, it's like a lot of times people are looking at the kid and saying, "What's wrong with him? Like, why isn't he happy? Or why isn't he, why is he getting into the weird stuff that he's getting into?" And it appears like the most people that aren't there, those people appear strange or misguided or deluded in some way. But really, they're the ones that are actually digging into the meaning of life. Like those are the real philosophers, not just and not just armchair philosophers, but like they're actually trying to transform their lives in some meaningful way.
What Coach Stupid, you know what made it worse was perhaps if I told my family, and you could imagine if we were growing up in Italy, and then you tell your parents, you know what, I'm on a quest for God. I'm going to join the Catholic Church, and they're like, okay, son,
Very
we were
good.
hoping you'd get
Yeah.
married and have children,
Oh,
but good luck on your priesthood.
yeah.
Instead, it was, to be a Hindu monk, a Krishna monk, it was so foreign to our culture in the 80s, before the internet, before the information age,
Yeah.
and just with a bunch of, peculiar uh,
Cult figures.
preconceived notions. It was very culty in the 70s, and therefore it was not like I'm not only not doing a good thing. It
You're
was
doing
like,
a
you're giving
bad
up your
thing.
music, you're
Yeah.
giving up all your friends, you're giving up your family for these weirdos. Are you crazy? It was like, and at the same time, I'm going and fighting against all my demons for a 22-year-old person to give up illicit sex, intoxication, and etc.
And I'm thinking it's not even like you're phrasing it that way, which is I totally get. But even just to try to understand, like, what is the meaning of this? What is the purpose of this life? Like,
Sure.
and so and I think that, like, sure, it's common that people might go through that in their teenage years, but I think people are going through that, like a lot of our listeners are going through that at all different ages. It might hit in when you're 35 or 40, and you're like, there's got to be something more to this. And they'll go through the exact same thing where people will look at them and say, what's wrong with this person?
Sure.
They're losing touch here. They're not focused on the right thing, but it's actually it just appears when you don't have that inner drive to find something more meaningful, people can't necessarily relate to it.
And if you've been sincerely praying to God for years, saying, please give me direction, please give me truth, please give me a path, and then it shows up in this package, I was like, wait a second, I didn't want this package. Is there another package, God? I can't yell at God for appearing to me in this particular package when I've just been praying for a path of
You just
truth.
gotta take it.
I was hoping there'd be a different outfit, a different haircut, a more respected whatever. But
Dodie, really?
really, I got to wear this to be God conscious. But that's what I got. I asked for that, and that's the package
That's
it came
what
in,
came. Okay.
and I'm grateful for it. In
And I think
retrospect,
part of what comes out is like, in one sense, you couldn't have asked for more than Vrindavan, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like it came not in one sense, yeah, it came in this total alien kind of package, but also when you got into that package and saw it all, it's like, my God, this is the most beautiful culture I've ever seen in my life. It's like,
for sure. And then trying to explain that, it was very difficult to explain to anybody, any of my friends, any of my family members, and in that young enthusiasm, you try desperately to explain it, and the more you explain it, the crazier they think you are.
sure. Yeah. So you continued here. You said, I didn't go to India to put on a Hindu costume. I got into Vedic teachings to uncover all the costumes I've been wearing to find out what I was at my core. The sacred literature of India explained this in a way that gave me the broadest understanding of spirituality I'd ever had. I was ready to dive into the ocean of devotion, living in India with all its colors, scents, and raw beauty. I went straight to Krishna's holy land, Vrindavan, where Krishna, the young cowherd boy, the origin of all 33 million demigods, the supreme personality, had resided 5,000 years ago in his manifestation on earth. The place was still alive, vibrant, totally inspiring. But then, only a few months later, I left Vrindavan feeling like a loser because I couldn't make the cut. The power of that holy place and its holy people created a detoxifying effect, a purging. But I found the transformation too confrontational. I faced off against too many inner demons too quickly. I became critical, rude, intolerant, arrogant, and defensive. I lost perspective. Senior monks encouraged me to leave Vrindavan and go to an ashram in Calcutta and perhaps visit the holy place of Mayapur a few hours north of this city. So could you just tell us a little bit about that? Like, what were you doing to people?
Just go around wrecking things and flipping over tables.
I can't take it anymore.
I think that's what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, is it just the cold, the weather, the food, the?
I love the example of the sauna. It's just the sauna. It's just like, it's good for you, and then it's just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and you're drinking water and you're getting hotter and you're sweating. Finally, like, I got to get out of here. And so I think that's what happened.
I always remember you telling the story when you did your first Govardhan Prikrama, and everybody's just, which is a 21 kilometer barefoot walk, and everybody else is just like, it couldn't be in more bliss, and you're like desperate, like, is it over yet?
Everyone is joyful. First of all, I'll just tell that story briefly. It was asked to go on the Govardhan Prikrama, and it starts off beautiful. It was a full moon. Walking around Govardhan Hill at night is like gorgeous. It's crowded in a nice communal sort of way. But I didn't know what
singing and
Govardhan
dancing
Hill was. I was just like, how big can a hill be? And people are singing songs, but and then I knew this concept, the be of service. So I went to Swamiji there and got some. Can I hold your book bag for you? And I'm holding this big book bag, and for some reason I'm carrying my own book bag, and just carrying stuff, trying to be of service to other people. And then sitting under that moon that we share with, my mother is also looking at the moon that night, the same moon I'm sharing with my mother. And now I'm looking at that moon, and I think it was hard, but I separated myself from everybody.
Mm.
for my entire world, my entire community. I'm on the other side of the planet, literally and figuratively. And I made it. And I'm here with the moon and these people endeavoring on a spiritual path and this, beautiful hill and these beautiful people and and so I was feeling that release, like you've been released from prison, the prison of your own mind. But slowly, as I'm walking around this hill, I realized, how long is this hill? How long does this go on for? I was like, I thought we were going to be there 20 minutes. So, and I'm not used to walking barefoot. I had, like high top sneakers, and thick socks. So the more I'm walking, the more and then it's nighttime and you're like stubbing your toe and I slashed my toe open. So walking barefoot with a bloody toe in India, that is a recipe for, and
Elephantitis.
that's what I was thinking. Elephantitis, tuberculosis, gangrene, all these, like every like tropical disease I could ever think of. I've been picturing
This is where it happens.
parasites climbing through my bloodstream, like. And I was like, okay, this isn't good. This can't be good. My wet toe is covered with dirt. I'm stepping in puddles. God knows what's in that, puddles or feces or whatever. And it's going on and on. I'm still trying to keep a good mood. Now the book bags that I carry are cutting into my lats, like burning me. The pain from my feet from walking barefoot is going higher and higher. Wait, big deal. It's going to be a little longer. Hare Krishna, Jai Radhe. I'm feeling good. And suddenly I start going to like the back of the line. There's probably like 20 people, a bunch of enthusiastic monks up front, and women with baby carriages sort of like rolling behind. Even the women with the baby carriage, they're passing me out. I'm going slower and slower. Pain is shooting up towards my butt. And finally, I see everybody way in the distance, way ahead of me, and they're all sitting down. And the Swami gets up on a high pitch and he says, okay, everybody, in about an hour, we'll be at the halfway point. And at that point, my head exploded. What? I thought they must have been done by now. We're not even at the halfway point. And that's when I had a total meltdown. And I just started getting angry and resentful and thinking, how can I get out of here? And
was that like, did that definitely lead to what you're writing about here? Like,
no. Then I bounced back the next day and everything was fine. What I wanted to point out in this book especially was when you read Journey Home or Autobiography of a Yogi, those books, Autobiography of a Yogananda goes to Vrindavan and like, I never want to leave. Radhanath Swami goes to, Rishikesh. He's like, oh, I'm in a holy place. I'm going to fast for 30 days and sleep under a tree. I'm going to throw my clothes in the Ganga. But not everybody has that type of spiritual fortitude and stamina. I got there and I was like, this is the best place on earth. And the next day I was like, I hate the world. I hate myself. I hate myself for hating the world. And what it does show is that, oh, I get it. I'm living in my mind. And if I can't get over this roller coaster, this up and down of the mind, this seesaw of the mind, I'm never going to be happy, even when I'm doing what I want to do. I chose this. I want to do this, but I'm just letting little things tick me off. So for the most part, I left. But at the same point, I thought, you know what? I got the highs as well as the lows, and when I look back in retrospect, it's exactly what I needed to continue my journey.
Well, I
needed to get a sweet taste. I need to get a very sweet taste, and Vrindavan can do that to me, to any sincere soul. But also, it also gives you this FYI, you're not qualified.
You got a lot of work
to live
to do
here. You got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, right.
And that's what a lot of times people into spirituality don't realize. They just think, I'm so spiritual.
Right.
Why is the world fighting so much? But the fact is, we're not as spiritual as we like to think we are. And it does hold the makeup mirror to the face and realize all your blemishes.
Well, this is how you kind of concluded that part. You said, so there I was on that third-class train feeling crestfallen after shaking off my bad attitude about this unexpected change of location. I decided to do something radical. I shifted my perspective. I exclaimed, "My life is in God's hands." I moved forward on my physical and spiritual journey, which is both an internal and external adventure. So that principle, it seems like that's been a principle that probably in your life you keep coming back to. Maybe this
Yeah.
was your first real, the first time where life really made you just kind of surrender in that way, right? You know what? I can't control everything. My life is in God's hands.
It's a beautiful place to be when you realize you can't control it. You got an idea of what you'd like to do, but you can't control it. And sure, and getting on that train, you realize I can't control this either. As the train
Yeah,
breaks down for 11 hours.
right.
And it's so funny, people in that time, especially in India, who really understand this concept of we can't control things. I think they'll say later in that chapter, in the next chapter, how the train breaks down. It's a 25-hour train trip, and the monks I'm traveling with are asking more people to sit with us. It's like, let's make this trip more uncomfortable. I was like, are you guys kidding me? We're already on a train trip for 25 hours. There's no AC. There is like a wind tunnel of 100-degree air pumping through the windows. And we're going to invite more people onto our seat that holds 3. Are you kidding me? And and then I'm in my brain, I'm thinking like, well, it can't get worse than this. The train breaks down in a field for 11 hours.
In those days when I don't know if it's still, it doesn't seem like it's still like that, but it would stop and you don't know how long it's going to stop for.
And no one's got an answer. It's like
Yeah,
no one
it could be
cares.
2 days. We might
It
be
could be
sitting here
just
for
2 days in a field.
Yeah.
Everything was like that. Something about that India circa 1988. Everything. I'm going to mail a letter today to my family back in America. They may never get it. Like nothing. You could depend on
And
nothing.
and I might have to wait 4 hours to get a stamp to put on the letter.
Yeah, you could go to the center of the village to make your phone call, and they patch you through to Mathura to Delhi, and they still might not be there on the other side to receive it.
Yeah.
Yes, there is something very, very beautiful about destitution and surrender
Okay.
serious
Letting
and
go.
surrender to God,
Sure.
because you have no other shelter, and just say, okay, this is
Okay, let's read another section. This is going to have to do with faith. This is a whole different time. This is before that time. You're in your band, and you're in Southern California, so you're touring. I
Yeah,
guess
so,
kind of
yeah.
getting a feel for what
this
it's
is
like to.
before I was into it. Yeah,
Yeah, or you're just getting some interest. You're obviously interested in spirituality, and you'd obviously heard about Krishna consciousness just through the hardcore scene, but you hadn't had so much direct contact with it.
sure.
And so you're in Southern California. Youth of Today performed in Southern California. I was staying with Zach De La Rocha, who would later help form Rage Against the Machine, but wasn't yet famous. At his parents' house in Irvine, Zach was a fan of the Youth of Today, and at one point said we'd inspired him to go vegetarian. He was 17 and I was 20. He was incredibly talented, fun, and thoughtful, and we shared a liking for fast hardcore music, stage diving, and losing ourselves in the moment. I was always looking for new vegetarian restaurants, and I knew there was a Krishna temple in Laguna Beach, about 35 minutes away, that had a small vegetarian cafe inside. So we headed there one day. We walked. So this is the Laguna Beach temple, which we still visit today, right?
Sure. Yeah, our good friend Tukaram runs the temple there.
Yeah. Right.
Great community there. But at that time, the front foyer and the gift shop was a vegetarian cafe. So it was open during the week, and it was great. It was a great little place.
Yeah. You said we walked into the cafe and peered into the mysterious temple, which was small but charming, situated a block from the Pacific Ocean. We decided to go in before we ate. We kicked off our shoes and had a glimpse of the altar and paintings. It was an old church painted brightly and tastefully, yet it didn't have the gravity and gloominess of some of the churches I'd grown up in. There were no pews. It was an open checkered floor like a chessboard. There were massive paintings on the walls depicting the life of Chaitanya, the Kirtan avatar, though I didn't know who he was at the time. The paintings were mesmerizing. We stood and gazed at them, trying to figure out what was going on. The deities on the altar appeared foreign to me. There were 5 beautifully carved statues of men. Some had their hands in namaste, while others had their hands in the air. I didn't really understand Hindu deities, but their presence was bold and beautiful. It felt holy. The temple was pretty much empty, with a library of sacred books on the shelf and a vyasasan, or seat for the speaker, with some cushions stacked up against the wall. I could smell the incense that had burned there perhaps a few hours ago. It was a sensational experience in every sense of the word. My senses were experiencing something otherworldly, with the artwork, the altar, the smells, and the sounds of music and mantras playing softly in the background. Although I was touring, writing, and recording records, my life direction seemed confused. I was being creative, prolific, and spreading a good message, but I wanted to have depth, wisdom, and purpose. I was over being a frivolous child. You sure you're entirely over being a frivolous child right
Oh,
now?
I'm totally over it.
Okay. Okay. We put on our shoes. We put on our shoes and went back into the cafe, where we grabbed a tray and headed through the buffet, picking out a salad, curried vegetables, basmati rice, and some mung dal, and a small dessert. Now this is interesting, right? This is where it just sounds to me like, when I read this now, this is where the Paramatma in Raghunath's heart was saying, do something more, take another
Sure,
step, right?
Sure.
So you said,
Don't just eat at the cafe.
right. So he said, I wondered if they would let me experience a night in the temple. A young monk walked out, and I asked him who ran the place. He pointed to an older man with light brown hair and a tuft of a ponytail in the back of his head. The older Krishna devotee had a grave, sweet face and was wearing a hooded sweatshirt and an Indian robe, a nice combination of East meets West. So this was our friend to this day, right? A friend, and not just friend, but just like, he's an great example to
A
us.
great example, great kirtan leader, great devotee. His name is
Badahari
Badahari Prabhu.
Yeah. Humble, deeply
Spiritually
spiritual, great
focused
soul.
man. He and his
So
wife.
much comes out in his kirtan too. Right? Okay, so you said, excuse me, are you in charge here? He said, yes, he said, and gave me a sweet smile. Could I stay here overnight to see what it's like? I'm visiting from New York for a while, and I'm interested in Eastern thought and spirituality. He looked me up and down and nodded. Yeah, sure. My name is Badahari. Do you want to come back tomorrow and stay overnight? Sure, I said, surprised at how easy that was.
I was like, that's all. That's the vetting process.
Zach and I went back to his parents' house. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked. Yes, I said. What's the worst that could happen? Cult indoctrination, maybe, he joked. Kidnapping, castration, perhaps, I added. Where were you going? We laughed, and the next day he dropped me off with my small backpack at the temple door on Legion Street in Laguna Beach. Okay, now this is what happens, and this is interesting. I met the temple elder Badahari, and he invited me in to help him do some work in the kitchen washing pots. I was up for anything and started washing them with a vigor. Can I ask you a question? I asked while he was cutting vegetables. Sure, Ray. How do you believe all this stuff? It's a big pill to swallow. God is a blue cowherd boy. There's life on other planets. There's a sun god, a moon god, a wind god. How are we supposed to turn off our rational minds and just accept all these fantastic stories? I mean, we're adults. I trailed off, thinking I was being profound.
I thought I was such a deep philosopher until you meet the Hare Krishnas.
He said, what do we know, Ray? He asked. Seriously. He stopped cutting. What do we actually know? A small ant was crawling along the counter near where I was cutting. Do you see that ant? I nodded. Do you think that ant knows we're in a temple? Do you think that ant knows you have blue jeans on? Or that we're a block from the ocean? Do you think that ant knows that? I shook my head. No, he said. It's all real, though. You are wearing blue jeans, and we are in a temple, and we are near the ocean. But it's beyond the ant's perception to understand it, even though he's right next to us. He's right here, and he's clueless. He doesn't have the capacity to understand, even though we are right in front of him. I knew where he was going with this analogy.
Mm.
We are those ants, Ray, he said. Arrogant. We think we know everything, but we're clueless. We guess, speculate, come up with theories, but we're like ants. Ants with theories, trying to figure out what is beyond our sense perception. We're trying desperately to get perfect knowledge with our imperfect ant-like senses. The Vedic teachings give us a clue into reality, and reality is fantastic. It's not ordinary. He paused while I digested what he said.
Mm.
No one is asking you to accept those fantastic things. In Vedic teachings, we're not looking for blind followers. This isn't faith-based, it's experience-based teachings. We ask you to bring your discernment, your intelligence, your doubts, and then enter the experiment. So to say, yes, Ganesh is definitely an elephant-headed being who scribed the Vedas might sound like blind faith. But to say he doesn't exist, and you know that for sure, that is blind doubt. How do we know? We are like ants. How do we know if Ganesh exists? How do we know if he doesn't exist? The safest thing to say is he could. He could exist. I don't know, but he could.
Mm.
Because I know very little, so I tend to focus on the things I do know. Like what, I asked, and this is an interesting part of the book. He said, like what, I asked, what do you actually know about this philosophy, and what can you say you know for sure? I know it's good to control my senses instead of indulging them. I nodded.
Check. That makes sense.
Okay. I know that rising early and taking cold showers is good for my health, and that meditation is good early in the morning, he said. And I
Okay.
know that I don't want to kill animals for food because they suffer tremendously. I kept nodding. I know that I'm not in control of my life. I have some control, but I don't have complete control. I know there's a limit to my sensory perception. What do you mean? For example, my ears cannot hear what a dog can hear. There are colors I cannot see. My senses are limited and subjective, like the ants. I also know that chanting has an effect on my consciousness. It affects me profoundly. This I know from experimenting with it. I know that the sounds that come out of my mouth, both negative and positive, affect me and my environment. If I gossip, it affects me. If I speak kindly, it affects me. I know that the Gita is a book of wisdom. I can understand that I am a spirit who has a body. I can witness my body change and see transformations. I started to see his point. So yes, in small increments, we move forward with faith, constantly questioning. I get it, I said, but it's hard. I'm just filled with so much skepticism and doubt. Oh, you're a doubter. Discernment is good, but be careful. Doubters stay paralyzed. In business, relationships, even in their spiritual life, use discernment, ask questions, but be careful with too much doubting. Or if you're going to doubt, he paused, why not just doubt your doubts?
Not a great one.
I smiled.
just
Yes, I
doubt your
thought,
doubts.
doubt my doubts. That sounds like it was an important lesson for you.
Doubt your doubts. It's
Yeah.
the analysis paralysis that keeps people from just moving forward in anything. You can overanalyze and ultimately you've got to take, if it makes sense, even just a little, then take a little step forward. And if it makes sense a lot, take a bigger step forward. But you've got to enter the experiment or else you're going to get no result.
Right, right.
By the way, Achyuta said that Achyuta and Andre. No, Achyuta.
Andre's book.
Andres.
What's that?
Andre's book literally arrived as Kostuba is reading from it now.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting. It's
all happening, Raghu. It's all happening.
It's all the magic's happening today.
Okay. So let's jump forward a bit now.
Okay.
Now you've spent a night in an ashram, then jump back in your band and towards some more, ended up back in New York, and you're still pursuing these ideas, and you write about a lot of interesting times you had.
Are you going to talk about me tripping on mushrooms now? Are we going to the mushroom?
I wasn't going to
trip
go
here?
there, but I can if you'd like to. You want to do that?
Whatever you like.
Well, in one sense, that leads into what I was about to read. Well, let's see if we'll do that. We can hang on for now. I was going to go to
whatever you like.
All right. I was going to go to a place where you meet someone that becomes really important. Now you're back in New York, and you did write about your searching that you're going through there, and the books that you're reading, and the people that you're meeting, and the experiences that you're having working, and in terms of romance, and in terms of your band, and all of these things. And so, in one sense, the whole thing was just kind of a big stew, where where like all these things are blending together, and you're trying to reach out and find that that rope, that's something to hold on to kind of pull you into the next stage of your life.
Sure.
And one place where that leads you, after meeting a guru figure who was kind of like really exciting in the beginning but disappointing in the end, and bouncing back and forth, seeing things that impressed you and things that didn't impress you, you end up in another Hare Krishna temple. This one's in Brooklyn in New York.
Sure. You got to understand, I've already been to this Krishna temple, but there was almost like an impenetrable wall there. Like I would
Right.
go and like no one would notice me. I was like, hey, are you trying to get another cult member? If you are, you're doing a lousy job, because I'm here showing up on a regular basis and no one will even speak to me.
Right. Okay, so which is a great segue to what's going on here, because you're describing that temple, and you give nice descriptions. You help bring people into that world. And in one sense, it's not so different than what it's like that you can walk into the temple and you get a similar experience, smell the same smells and see the same sights, even
Sure.
now, 40 years later, whatever. But what you really needed was someone to talk to,
I really, yeah.
and someone that you could talk to where I don't want to, maybe it's the wrong word to use, but in a sense, their indoctrination wasn't too much of a wall to get over for you. You needed someone that could speak to you in a language that was relatable, someone that could speak your language.
That's what it is. It's like, it's the relatable person who's imbibed it, can translate it for you. Otherwise, it stays still cryptic.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's 8:02, Ragnar. Should we keep going?
Let's just go for a little bit longer. Then I gotta take.
All right. So, you said, as I walked out the back door of the temple into the front lobby, there were tables covered in books and snacks, spicy pakoras, samosas, and Indian sweet. Great stuff. Remember those? The big table. Hundreds of books piqued my interest, and you list some of the different books. And then one of them is called Food for the Spirit: Vegetarianism and World Religions by Stephen Rosen. It presented how and you were already kind of like in your band, kind of like promoting vegetarianism big time.
I was a big time
spokesperson,
advocate, and outspoken preacher of vegetarianism.
So that's going to catch your eye. It presented how prominent world religions are all supported a restricted diet when it came to animal consumption. It was filled with facts, quotes, and scriptural references that I used when endorsing animal rights among religious people who consume meat. I wondered if the author was part of this sect of this Krishna community.
See, I had purchased.
You already had that book.
I had purchased this book at Weiser's, which was a metaphysical bookstore.
Okay, so you were already familiar with that.
I was already,
But here it is at the Hare Krishna temple.
It was my favorite book. It was my favorite book. And when Youth of Today put out a record, its final record, I wanted to write a book list of books I've read that promote vegetarianism, and there weren't that many out there, the ones that I knew at least. But I put this one on the album jacket, and it was before I even knew the author.
Right. Okay, so now you're at this Hare Krishna temple, and there's that book that you're so into. I wondered if the author was part of this sect of the Krishna community, or if the ashram just carried the book. Then I noticed a tall man standing close, peering over my shoulder. He was dressed conventionally in a blazer and jeans. I immediately recognized his smile from the back of Food for the Spirit. Oh, hi, I said, you're the author. I use your book constantly. I'm a vegetarian and animal rights supporter. Your book is a fantastic resource. I'm so honored and excited to meet you. Are you a Krishna too? Yes, definitely, he replied. You don't look like one by the way you're dressed, I said. Our spiritual life has little to do with the way we dress and more to do with what's in our head and heart. Wouldn't you agree? Good answer, I thought. Good answer, I
Good
thought.
answer.
And
It's like, oh, that's smart.
you said, I'm going to buy food for the spirit for my friend Marianne. Can I ask you a spiritual question about Vedic teachings? Sure. There seems to be a discrepancy in the different traditions. Some worship God as a personal deity and some as formless. It seems reckless to dive into a tradition before getting to the bottom of this. What does the Vedic tradition say about personal or impersonal facets of God?
So I was already going to different yoga,
Yeah.
communities, yoga ashrams, and this was it's a topic. This topic of bhukti, this topic of mukti, this topic of bhakti. I was like, well, which is it? Is God an energy or is God a being? And it seems like everybody here worships God as a being, but how do you even have the intelligence to discern, which one is for me?
Right. Okay, so he replies, so you said, what does the Vedic tradition say about personal or impersonal facets of God? They are both, he replied simply. How could God be both? Isn't God either one or the other? And then he replies, is the sun different from the sun's rays? Yes, I said. And then I caught myself. Well, yes and no. Which is it, he poked. Can you separate them from each other? I guess you can't have one without the other. But in one sense, they are different. Like if I say the sun is in the room, I'm not talking about the planet. Yes, exactly, he said. They are different and they are one. One is the sun globe and one is the energy of the sun. Neither are wrong, but it's looking at the truth, God or our higher power from a different vantage point. If I'm looking at a drawing of number 9 written on a piece of paper, my intelligence accepts it as a 9. If a person across from me sees the same drawing, but from his perspective, it's a 6, we're seeing the same thing from different vantage points. Only fools will say, I see a 6 and you are wrong, or I see a 9 and you are wrong. This misunderstanding of truth through different vantage points has destroyed spiritual traditions throughout the world. It must be uprooted. I had to agree. And since
That's a great statement.
it
This
has
is
to be
why
uprooted.
people hate religion, is because they dig their heels in and they just hate those who can't see from their own vantage point.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, okay. It was one of those missing puzzle pieces that you've been waiting for
Almost like
to snap right in.
the first time in your life where someone just started speaking on another level, another platform of spiritual understanding.
But also, truthfully, it was the first time that a devotee of this temple or this community, like, it really made sense to me, because I was going to this temple for a while and it just didn't make any sense. I don't know why.
There was something that was keeping you around.
I don't know why I kept coming back, but it was the first day I was like, I can relate to this person.
Yeah.
I think I might have even said that to him. I might have said, look, you're normal. I don't find anybody else normal here, but I like it. I like you.
So you were inspired and you wanted to ask him another question. So you asked, could I ask you some more questions? He said, sure. So I said, I've run into a lot of people that say truth is subjective.
Yeah, that's
that
a big
they're-
one still today, right? It's my
Sure.
truth. It's my
Yeah.
truth.
Maybe more than before. That their truth might be different from my truth. They say that truth is in the mind of the beholder and that there's no such thing as absolute truth. So he responds, so they say without a doubt that truth is subjective. He
That's
asked,
a good
smiling.
answer.
That, Ray, is an absolute statement. We both laughed. Right? So that makes so much sense, I said. Look, Ray, you seem bright. People who argue that we all have our own truth are fooling themselves. They cannot live with good conscience. That's like saying Adolf Hitler had his truth. Let him do what he wants. Pol Pot, Mussolini, Stalin have their own truths. Let them be. It's their truth. No, that makes no sense whatsoever. There is truth and there is illusion. There is love and there is hate. There is light and there is darkness. I nodded. He was right. There had to be a gold standard of truth for all people, all seekers, that was not bound by nation, culture, or religion. People also argue that there's no right or wrong, you said. Do you believe that? He asked. No, I said, there must be. People are fools, he said. They'll say anything to justify doing whatever the hell they want to do. Of course, there's a right and wrong. Or are they saying that kidnapping and human trafficking are okay? He smiled at how ridiculous people could be in the name of deep philosophical thinking. Good luck living that reality. And hearing this, it does remind me of, when I was more or less in your shoes and meeting a lot of the same people and hearing the same kind
arguments.
of answers to the same kind of questions, but they were so, it did kind of feel like finally someone is just clear.
Calling it out.
Yeah.
No, there is good and bad. There is
Yeah.
right and wrong. There is light and darkness.
There was something about Krishna consciousness that we met people that just were ready to answer any question that we threw out of them, and it was so consistent. The pieces kept fitting together so well.
That puzzle piece fits. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And so
really
for
helped.
you, it was especially Satyaraj, Stephen Rosen, that put those pieces together for you, I think. Huh?
Yeah, I spoke my language.
Well,
You never forget that. You
You
never
never forget
forget that romancing of Krishna and who Krishna sends to speak your language to you.
well, as Jay Shetty writes on the cover, Raghunath's transformation shows how one person's choice to evolve can change the lives of so many. And I think you've have, and through this book will continue to put a lot of those pieces together for people, Raghunath. I congratulate you on
By your
this
blessings, Prabhu. By your blessings.
wonderful accomplishment. People go out and get it today. Where's it? Tell people where to get it again, Mara. Punk to Monk. From Punk to Monk.
to Monk by Ray Raghunath Capo. It's available on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah,
All right.
Just get two of them. Just get two. Why not? Give it to a friend. Early
Okay.
Christmas presents.
So we'll be back.
It's also, I read it on Audible as well, and I think that should come out today too.
Oh, great.
So
And Mara and I will be back tomorrow, along with special guests throughout the week.
Mara doesn't get a break because I get a break. Sorry, you're independent.
No, we need her.
being.
And you try to hold it together out there, Ragnar.
I will. I'll check in with you. I'll give you little notes, and I hope
Okay.
to see some people in Southern California. I'm going to be at Veda Yoga Wednesday. I'm going to be at the Krishna, what's it called? The Krishna Lounge in San Diego on Thursday. And Friday, I'm going to be at Yoga 108 in Long Beach. And then Saturday, Youth of Today is playing somewhere in the hood in Los Angeles. And then Sunday, Shelter is playing in the evening. And I'm doing the Revelation Records Rev Market in the afternoon. Oh, Headline Records also on Saturday, too. And then Monday, flying up to be with Johnny Harrison. We're going to do that Bhakti SF. And then Tuesday, Castro, this yoga space on Castro. It's all on my Instagram, if you follow Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, we're on it. People are asking. We're on at 7 a.m. throughout this week.
Yes. Thanks. Excited. Hey, share it with a friend. And if you have purchased it, you got to write a good review, please. Makes a difference. Thanks for reading it, Christopher. It's
pleasure.
fun. It's exciting. And it brings me back to those places.
Well, one place we didn't want to go, Karuna was asking, the Calcutta Book Fair.
It's in there.
It's in the book, Karuna. You're going to have to. We'll never tell that story on this show. Never.
I added that for you, Christopher, because it does have a deep spiritual significance, as rank as the story was.
You will have to read the book, Karuna. We're not telling that story here.